I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.
What did he just say?
The return of the sausages. The return of the sausages. The hostages. Things will get worse before they get better.
Reform UK, after having their party conference, seem to be riding high, especially with the announcement of having mini conferences up and down the length and breadth of the UK.
We have to plan professionally ahead. And to that end, I will be in Newport, South Wales, on the 8th of November.
Nice.
For a one-day conference. On the 9th of November, I will be in Exeter, doing a South-West conference. On the 11th of November, I'll be up in the North East, and that'll be just the North East members. And on the 30th of November, Richard Tice will be in Scotland, where we are making astonishing progress with almost no resources. All of which goes to show that I meant what I said yesterday. Sky is the limit for this party. There is nothing that we cannot achieve.
Things certainly seem to be looking up for the now come-of-age party, as Farage calls it.
Yeah, well, we're all grown up now.
It has its strengths, but it also has weaknesses. Weaknesses I don't think many in the party regard as weaknesses. This video will endeavour to discuss what I think is the single greatest strength the party has right now, and then what I believe is their main potential weakness, or at least a hindrance those at the top haven't fully thought out enough. So with that, here we go. Winning only 5 MPs at the last election to many in the mainstream world may lead them to think that Reform isn't capable of doing big things or gaining further traction.
It's actually kind of funny how totally wrong they are.
Whereas, that could not be further from the truth. In a way, personally, I'm actually glad they only got 5 MPs selected, considering they had several candidates who were either enemy infiltrators, defectors, or just generally of a poor standard. It's good to see that the most visible members of the party are the ones who did get through, as well as 2 additional ones who are unknown. And to that end, it also shows us, with the inclusion of James McMurdoch and Rupert Lowe, what other candidates from the party, what 2 unknowns essentially, are capable of doing. James, from what I have seen, is more constituency based, and by that I mean his concerns are localised as he rarely speaks at Westminster. He also publishes videos about being a new MP, showing what he has to do in this position as an act of transparency.
Strolling through a lovely park in East Tilbury right now. Had a meeting in a pub with a couple of local councillors and some other residents discussing plans around house building. Anyway, carrying on. The reason I'm here is actually far more serious. This is carrying on with the talk we were doing about the 50-metre high pylons running across the whole of the East Anglia.
Now, those critical of him tend to quote his previous conviction where he apparently, and I quote here, assaulted, to use the official wording, a former girlfriend when he was 19, and by assaulted we actually mean, as James puts it, at 19 years of age, at the end of a night out together, we argued and I pushed her. She fell over and she was hurt.
So it's seriously not a big deal.
Now, James spent time in a young offenders institution and since then has gone on with his life. He got married and has had 4 children from that marriage. He's found success in the city as a trader. But still, to this day, he states he is ashamed of what had happened and will never shy away from addressing this. And that's really the point, isn't it? He knew it was wrong, he was convicted, served what they told him to serve, and has rebuilt his life without denying what happened. Should this single black mark destroy a person's life? Should someone like him not be given the chance to help others in the political arena?
Because everyone out there deserves a second chance.
Well, Reform UK certainly thought so, and so now he is elected as the new member for South Basildon and East Thurrock, demonstrating the party doesn't think a small teenage incident should warrant banishment for all time. Rupert Lowe, on the other hand, is different. In my view, he is an odd one to pin down. One might say his heart is in the right place, but not always his head in terms of his career up until this point.
Well, that's not good.
Let me explain. Lowe has had a long history in owning Southampton Football Club. During his tenure, there have been drastic ups and downs, many hirings and firings, and eventually ending with his leaving of the club not once but twice. Yet despite this, in terms of politics, he has been active for many years and seems to have found his raison d'etre, starting in 1997 after previously being a member and standing for the Referendum Party. He has been concerned with the state of the direction the nation has been going, as well as how those who claim to be our representatives conduct themselves. In standing for Reform UK, his pledges were all basically community orientated. So what makes this different from James McMurdoch? Well, the difference between McMurdoch and Lowe is that Lowe is a self-made millionaire and as such has decided to lead by example and donate his Westminster salary each month to a different charitable cause that is within his constituency. The other contrast between him and McMurdoch is, as I said earlier, James McMurdoch is keeping himself more constituency bound, whereas Lowe is promoting his constituency directly from Westminster. These two equally important ways of being a parliamentarian demonstrate that Reform UK can attract people from different aspects of life, but also maintain a good standard of professionalism, regardless of the method they use to administrate their duties.
He said that weird.
Now, it doesn't matter really what I say for this section. There will be people who agree, people who disagree, people who don't care, and people who like shouting at me because they're a bunch of Funnily enough, though, the weakness I wish to explore is connected to its strength, attracting varied people from different backgrounds and giving some a second chance.
Please, continue.
Yet, when this comes to certain characters who have been willing to lend their support or do indeed support the party, the top brass tends to ignore them. Ben Habib, who at this time I believe is still a member, somehow, because he's been openly critical of certain aspects that make up Reform UK's constitution.
But when I got the constitution the other day, actually it was a rehashed document that I had rejected a year and a half ago, with a few changes here and there, which couldn't have been made more than by a paralegal. It certainly had not had the finest legal minds in the country on it. The document is very largely a mess, and it doesn't deliver the ability of the membership to remove the leader. And let me just get one thing clear. I am not seeking the removal of Nigel Farage. This has got nothing to do with Nigel Farage. But any organisation, whether it's political, private, governmental, if it has a leadership that cannot be held to account, that don't have checks and balances in place to ensure that they behave properly, and where the leadership don't recognise that they can be removed if they perform badly, that leadership and that organisation will fail.
The higher-ups in the party do not want to know him or act as if nothing is wrong.
Life would be boring if we were all the same. Ben's very committed, he's very enthusiastic. We just happen to disagree on one view. And when conference delegates come up to me and say, can you please confirm that this new constitution means we can't be hijacked by bad elements, which can happen in growing political parties, that reinforces why actually this structure, this way of democratising the party is exactly the right way.
So nothing particularly has happened? There hasn't been an incident between Nigel or Ben?
We can have different views about how we do different things. And
because Nigel said he's not even a member of the party.
What did you just say?
Yeah, look, Ben Habib is doing rounds in the airwaves.
We've got 80,000 members of the party, so I don't have the list in front of me. Who knows?
Nigel says he's not a member, and Richard brushes past the question. These are the sort of things that those in opposition to Reform UK can use to say they are still amateur, still just a pressure group, or worse still, judging by Richard's performance here, just more of the same, a replacement Tory party.
Ew.
Ben Habib even tweeted out about another member who had been removed, describing him as a good friend and loyal servant of Reform UK, thus showing that the move towards what has been described as the professionalism of the party could prove an issue with ordinary people. Why? Because potentially, when it's known that those who have supported the party's various Eurosceptic incarnations since the beginning are slowly squeezed out, then the interpretation could be seen as a Reform UK version of the Night of the Long Knives.
We certainly don't want that, now do we?
A similar situation could be said for Tommy Robinson. Now, regardless of what you may think of him personally, good or bad, the key word the party wants to adhere to, as I've already stated, is professionalism.
Tommy Robinson hosted the Uniting the Kingdom March, and it was a very peaceful event, and lots of folk went, and actually lots of Reform UK supporters went. There was no trouble. whatsoever. Are you saying that if you attended that Tommy Robinson Uniting the Kingdom march, or maybe posted on X in support of that march, that you would not be able to stand for Reform UK in the future?
I haven't said that, but we have a list of entities that if you've been a member of, then that would prevent you from being a member of Reform or Standing. We're very robust on that. We want nothing to do with Tommy Robinson, and we want to aim to be a credible challenger, to be the next governing party, and that requires bluntly a level of hard work, professionalism, and credibility that we've never seen before from from a party outside the main two. So that's where we are, that's what we're doing, that's where we're going, and we're not going to be hijacked by anybody in that ambition.
This professionalism could either help or hinder them going forward, especially when you have many people who support the party but also support Tommy. Tommy himself didn't have any flattering things to say in reply, and this sort of division is a problem in two ways. Firstly, like in America, it feeds into the classic line of the right wing can never unify, which from the outside looking in, this very much represents that stereotype. You can by all means either dislike each other, disagree with each other, whatever, but to remedy this situation, you've got to keep it private. You have to keep it private. Learn restraint. That goes for both sides. The second thing is this. In excluding people like Tommy, like Ben, like anyone who may not quite fit the look, the accusations of being a new breed of Tory will come through fast and loud. However, this is a big however, to play a little devil's advocate, even if in reality they did like Tommy, they still couldn't voice that because it's not their rules they play by in this parliament, in our country. It's the rules of the political class that have been here for over 100 years.
Well, that sucks.
Put simply, they're damned if they do, and damned if they don't. Let's be serious. If people want to see reform in any type of governing capacity, this unfortunate situation means playing the game to a certain extent, then changing that game from within. So my thoughts on all this are clear. Reform UK is not a perfect organisation. It has a lot of faults. It may gain more faults, and those should be challenged. Ben Habib is right to do so. But figures like Tommy refuse to see the bigger picture and act like a bull in a china shop with every issue. A bull can be really useful, but not when you want to appeal to a broad church of people that consists of a wide range of perspectives and attitudes. Perspectives, by the way, that may still be stuck on that classic image of what Tommy presented himself with the now dissolved EDL. I would love it if these organisations that make up the true soul of the British right wing could find a way to harmonise. But that would require compromise. A very unpopular word in British history for good reason. Traitor! It would need the so-called professionalisation to take precedence, and yes, I'm sorry, to unfortunately remove anyone, regardless of the length of time they have been part of the movement, who may compromise the ability of the party to do the work necessary for the good of the country to step aside. I hope people see this video for the spirit of which it was made, not as an attack on Reform UK, but to show that fracturing this early on may cause long-term division down the line that enemies could exploit. And with that, I turn it over to you in the comment section and say thank you all for watching, do take care, and as always, God bless.